Come along with me today as I transform this sweet little pretty dollhouse from Dollar Tree into something spooktacular. This video is part of a closed collaboration, including the lovely YouTube creators you see here. Several of us got together not too long ago and transformed Dollar Tree toys into pieces of home decor. I'll link that video in my description box in the event that you missed it. Well, we had so much fun transforming those toys that we decided to do it again, only this time using a dollar store toy dollhouse and transforming it into something suitable for Halloween. I hope you'll watch the whole playlist to see not only my creation, but everyone else's too. Enjoy. Alrighty, we have our little Dollar Tree dollhouse out of its package, all ready to be painted. What I'm going to be doing is giving it a good coat of black paint, and rather than using an acrylic paint and brushing it on, I have some black spray paint that I recently used on a project, and I thought, you know what, it's going to be a lot quicker and easier to give it a good coat of spray paint and be done with it. So once I have that completely covered with the black spray paint, I will come in and just rub on really lightly some white paint. I've got my white paint here. I think I'm just going to simply take a little paper towel, maybe a sponge, and just go over the raised areas of the house. And then I'm going to add the house to a street or a little neighborhood. I'm going to sit it amongst a couple of neighbors for the complete look. So I hope you enjoy how I put this all together. I'm spray painting outside here in my backyard, and of course at night, how fitting for our Halloween theme. I made sure to spray paint the inside covering the pink so that it doesn't show through when we light a candle and light it up in the dark. And then of course a good coat of spray paint on the entire exterior, covering it in black. Now that our dollhouse is all painted and the paint is dry, I'm taking my white acrylic paint, and you can see I'm using the tiniest amount. I'm using also just a small piece of paper towel, and I'm going to start to rub on some of the paint, and I'm going over all the raised areas there, and wherever I feel like I've put too much paint, I rub it dry with the drier part of the paper towel, and I just continue this process all around the raised areas. And this just gives it sort of a weathered look, I guess, and sort of makes it look a little more eerie and perfect for our little Halloween setting. So in just a moment, that is all finished up. Okay, so now that our Dollar Tree dollhouse is all painted and ready to be placed on its street with its neighbors, I am going to show you how I do that and what I use to do that. So I purchased this black little shelf. You can see it's got little hooks here to put into the wall. I purchased this about a couple of years ago at Dollarama. I loved it, and I always knew it would be perfect for something. I didn't know what, but here we are. It's perfect for this little project. When I purchased the Dollar Tree dollhouse, I also purchased this little votive holder, this candle holder here, and it's a black house. You can see it's meant for Halloween. It was not my intention to use this with the dollhouse when I purchased this, but when I took them both out of the bag, I realized it would be perfect for this project. So what I'm going to do is take some orange fabric that's a bit sort of see-through. It's got tiny little holes in it, and I'd like to glue it so that it's inside the house and so that when we place a candle inside, it's going to look like there's an orange glow coming out of the home. I think that will be perfect. I also purchased this little chalkboard sign. It's an arrow from Michaels. It was $2.99 Canadian, so a little bit less in American funds. But what I'm going to do is flip it on its side, and this will act as a house as well. So I'll show you how I dress up the roof a little bit, add a little window, and then I'll show you at the end how it all comes together. So here's the little house. I'm going to simply hot glue the back of it as much as possible, making sure that I get really good coverage. And then once I've done that, I simply take my orange fabric and place that inside and press it down. Now I've got my little handy dandy scissors. These are actually fantastic scissors. They're small and they cut wonderfully. So I do like using these for this little project. Now I'm going to admit, for some reason, this was not easy to do. It's so silly, it's just cutting, but maybe because there were so many little dips and curves and whatnot that I had to sort of cut all around, but I sort of get the hang of it after a while. It's really not rocket science, but sometimes these things turn out to be the most difficult. It's so silly. But there we go. I keep trimming and I keep looking at the front to make sure that I'm cutting it properly. So what I discovered was I had little scraps of orange fabric left over, and it was so simple to just fill in the sort of little holes that were peeking through with those scraps. And we do actually have now all of our windows fully covered except our chimney, which I will not be doing. And so all I'm going to do is take a big blob of glue. I will actually do a nice sort of string of glue all around, and then just place that in the corner like so. I think it needs to come back a bit. And I think what's cute too is I have these sort of plastic or acrylic orange chunky gems, I guess you could call them. I'm going to simply glue those in front of the house here. And I think they'll add a cute little finishing touch to the front of this house. So now I'm taking this arrow sign that I purchased. I'm going to cut the string off. I'll probably save that for a little project. We do have a hole. The bottom hole will not show. This might show. So I think what I'd like to do is maybe find a little ghost or a crow or something like that to cover it. If I don't end up doing that, I will have to maybe fill it in with some sort of putty and paint over it. But for now, what I'm going to do is work on my roof. Here is a roof sort of shingles that I printed off of the computer, and I'm going to simply place this here like so, and I'm going to trace here. I'm going to cut that out. And rather than using a hot glue, because this is paper, I think hot glue is a bit too thick for it. The glue might end up showing through. It might be sort of lumpy and bumpy. So I'm going to grab a glue stick just over here, just a little glue stick that I have. And I'm going to, well, we all know how to use a glue stick. Just going to sort of scrape it across here. As well, I will ensure that the corners and edges are covered. And just position that like so. Very easy. And then off of the computer, I also printed this window, which I liked it because it was fancy. I think I'm going to darken it up a little bit. I liked the detailing here, but what I really like about this window is it looks like you are on the outside looking in, and a lot of images that I found on the internet were the opposite. It was as if you were inside the home and looking out, and we are going to be outside, so we want to look like we are looking in. So I will simply do the same, glue the back of our image. I will try to, as best as possible, center this. I hope I've got it straight there. There we go. And now let me see if I can take some black paint and just make that look just the tiniest bit more spooky. So I've got my black paint here. I've already sort of tested a tiny bit in here. I'm just taking this and just scraping along really naively, just sort of brushing in black and just making it look the tiniest bit darker and tiniest bit more spooky. I'm certainly not being perfect here. And yet already that makes such a difference. Not a huge difference, but certainly it doesn't look so crisp and white anymore. It just looks a little darker and more in keeping with our Halloween theme. Now I'm taking this little house we just made. I'm going to glue it right to the back of our shelf. So I will apply glue right to the surface, making sure there's a really good amount. And then I will have this lying flat. Now I could have made this house even taller and glued the bottom of it right onto the top of the shelf, but I think it would sort of take over the whole piece. I think it would be too tall. So that's it there. I'm going to try to quickly paint that hole. That hole in this piece here is bothering me. So let's see if I can just fill in that hole and maybe have it not be so obvious. I will decide in a minute whether I think that is fine on its own. Watch to the end to see what I do. So now that I have this part done, we have our house sort of all weathered looking. It's time to glue our little dollhouse right down. And I'm going to use a good amount of glue, ensuring that it stays in place. It will go front and center. And then what I've decided to do is just add another one of those orange little rocks on the other side. I think that needs a bit more glue, so let's get a good amount of glue in there. And then what I decided that I did really want to cover this hole. I do have a bit of electrical black tape behind it. It's still not looking great. So I found this great orange sparkly spider. I was quite excited when I went into my Halloween stash and found that. And what I'm going to do is simply glue it down. I'm adding glue to the tips of these spider legs. Let's see how this works out. I'm getting a lot of the glue strings, which I'll remove all at the end. And placing that down. And in a moment, I'll show you how this looks displayed and ready for Halloween. And here we are, our pretty little pink and purple princess dollhouse turned into an eerie sight, all ready for Halloween night, ready to scare the little children as they approach for their trick-or-treats. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Did you like the way my little dollhouse turned out? Please give me a thumbs up if you did like it. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Kindly watch the entire playlist to see everyone else's creation. Thank you so much for visiting.